Good afternoon. Convening the Committee on Transportation and Culture and Arts here in Senate Conference Room 224 on our 3 p.m. agenda. We have a number of bills on the agenda this afternoon, so make sure to submit your written testimony if you haven't yet. And as we do have that written testimony, we just ask everyone to keep your testimony concise. And with that, why don't we start off with House Bill 600 relating to safe routes to schools, which establishes a Safe Routes to School Advisory Committee within DOT. And testifying first is Department of Transportation. Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Up next is the Department of Health.
Department of Health, Department of Transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. Department of Education. In support, State Council on Developmental Disabilities.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Hawaii State Climate Change Mitigation and Adaptation Commission. Support. Honolulu Police Department. In support, City and County of Honolulu Department of Transportation Services in support, Maui MPO in support, Ulupono Initiative in support, Hawaii State Teachers Association in support. Oh, thank you. Hawaii Public Health Institute. Thank you. Hawaii Primary Care Association in support, Malama Kauai in support, We Are One Inc. in support, Aloha Care. Good afternoon.
Chair, Aloha Care is not on Zoom. Not present.
Oh, Mr. Johnson.
Sorry, Senator. It's listing me as Aloha Care, but I'm here as an individual today. I apologize for the confusion. It wouldn't let me change it wouldn't let me change it.
Understood. Thank you. We'll get back to you. Hawaii Children's Action Network in support, and then Kylie Swan.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and Committee Member. My name is Kylie Swan. I am part of Hawaii State Council of Developmental Disabilities. I strongly stand in support of this HB 600 because safety of a pedestrian, also a top priority for our students, needs to get to school from their home without getting their harm's way. Thank you for allowing me to testify. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you so much for helping me on this bill.
Thank you very much. Mr. Johnson.
Good afternoon, everybody. Stand on my testimony in strong support, other than to offer a couple of amendments in my written testimony, just specifying the nature of the plan that's described in there, removing some of the language that restricts the definition of the program to the federal side, and then replacing some of the language that shall take into consideration, shall give priority to. Other than that, stand in support. Appreciate your consideration and your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you. We have additional testimony from about 10 individuals, all in support. Is there anyone here in the room wishing to testify on this measure that we haven't called? Okay, thank you very much. That's all the testimony we have. Are there any questions? Just real quick for a DOT. Good afternoon. I'm just noting, there's been a number of bills that try to address creating safer ways for people to get around, this being one of them. I'll note the title of this bill is relating to safe routes to schools, which is obviously not going to address all the situations out there. There are other measures that have broader consideration and broader funding and other things, should those move forward. But for the moment, assuming that we're going to be dealing with Safe Routes to School program in this bill, if we were to narrow this down so it's not duplicative and use them as complementing bills, if we were to basically limit, let's say, to the Safe Routes to School coordinator, which is existing in DOT, and had them draft up the just plans in conjunction with other stakeholders, is that something you guys would be okay with?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, thank you, everybody. Let's move on to the next measure. Up next is House Bill 1113, relating to the Drug and Alcohol Toxicology Testing Laboratory, which authorizes monies in the State Highway Fund to be expended to maintain the Drug and Alcohol Toxicology Lab and its programs. And testifying first on HB 1113 is the Department of Transportation.
Thanks, Chair. DOT stands in support.
Thank you. Up next, oh, that's it. That's all the testimony we have in this measure. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in this measure this afternoon? All right, if not, are there any questions? If not, thank you, everybody. Let's go on to HB 474 relating to the State of Hawaii Museum of Natural and Cultural History. And testifying first is Bishop Museum. Good afternoon.
Chair Lee, Chair Noye, and Member Elefante, thank you so much for having this hearing today. I very much appreciate it. With the funds that the legislature appropriated last year, I wanted to give you an update very quickly and then get on to what we're doing right now for this bill. First of all, since we got the funding, we've already begun repairing roofs at the Bishop Museum. We are repairing air conditioning, security systems, and most importantly, we are looking at fire suppression, and that's a very big project. So we'll probably carry over into the next year as we are checking for hazmat issues. But those are all necessary things, and I truly appreciate the funding for that. We're also looking at making sure that all of the valuable collections that are there and research that is there is housed in appropriate places in order for us to actually go into the building and do the repairs. So appreciate the funding for that as well. In addition, with the expanded IT infrastructure that we received, both new systems as well as curators are now working on what we call the most strategic issue that we have to go forward, which is digitization, taking all the collections, all the research of art, culture, and science, and putting it into digital form in order for the entire world to be able to capture the knowledge and also use that information for preservation and cultivation of the arts and culture and the environment. So there's a tremendous amount of work ahead. It has begun. It's been very successful thus far, and we're looking forward to sharing that knowledge and wisdom with the rest of the world soon. Secondly, I just wanted to update you on what we have done at the Bishop Museum to be able to qualify and keep your trust in how we are running today. So I am the interim CEO and president. I've been that for 2 months. Since then, I have hired a leadership team, especially a CFO and chief legal officer for the museum. And right now I have a full leadership team, all approved by our board, and we are moving forward with these significant projects ahead. We look forward to, again, continuing our visitor counts, which are growing, also continuing our research, which is growing, and also continuing our community involvement. And so I rest on my testimony from there, and I thank you for your support of this bill.
Thank you very much. Up next on 474 is Historic Hawaii Foundation and support. Society for Hawaiian Archaeology in support. And we have 4 individuals all in support. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure this afternoon? If not, are there any questions?
Yeah, DJ, come on up again. Thank you, Chair. Thank you. And thanks for taking your new role. And we appreciate all you have done in your past work, which I'm familiar with, but we're happy to have you on board. So with the issue, when the appropriation was made to assist the museum with regards to addressing, you know, the roof and everything else.
Yes.
And I should have asked at that time, are there anything that you have, like we do at DLNR agencies, archives?
Yes.
Okay, because now you're doing the other things in with your, I guess, the program that you had just mentioned earlier.
Yes.
So,
we
and
do.
what happened to the archives?
The archives are also going to be put into the digital format. So
That's
that,
why I wanted to ask you if
Yes.
you're going to put the
Yes.
archives work in there as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
because right now, when people research their genealogy or other issues,
Exactly.
it takes months. So now with it in a digital form, we can pull it up faster.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm happy that that's the next step. But
Yes.
again, congratulations, good luck.
Thank you.
And, that's a museum, that we must make sure that the infrastructure and everything that's housed there, that
Yes.
entire building, must be preserved no matter what. It's something that we can't neglect because we have not put the resources that we all had shared with everybody else into this building, which is unfortunate. Now we have everything collapsing on us. So, and we all know we're experiencing that. We're
Thank
here
you.
every day. But
Yes.
I'm happy that at least we have the resources to make sure that we keep our museum in good shape. So good luck.
Fabulous.
And I know that you'll do an excellent job there working with the board as well.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Oh, if you can stay there, Ms. Miller. Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much, for being here and for your testimony. I just have a few questions.
Sure.
The first question is, do you know when Bishop Museum became the sort of the state museum in this respect?
I don't know the date, but it was many, many years ago.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
know, maybe some of you were here at that time, and I can get the date certainly, many
Okay.
years ago.
And then my second question specifically has to do with, I think we've all seen what's happened recently in the news, which you kind of alluded to in your testimony. I know you can't really get into personnel matters in that sense, but being that this would appropriate federal funds, but it doesn't have sort of a dollar amount on the federal funds that would be appropriated, what level of confidence can you give this committee and the public that funds, as you explained, were, that were appropriated from the legislature previously, but if we were to appropriate any new federal funds, that it would be used in the best interest for taxpayer dollars, for rightfully so, notwithstanding what's happened in the news recently?
Right, so I've looked at all of the different plans for this particular fund use, and all of the CIP all have documentation going forward and deadlines about when it has to happen. We expect that most of the work will be done in this time period for this CIP, and we expect only one project to overlap. For the other money that was associated with 7.5 million, that is already taking care of the infrastructure for the digital work. That's already in play. We have competitive bids. We have contractors bidding with different proposals, and we're taking the lowest bid if it's a quality bid. I can tell you that we got a no findings audit just recently, which is not surprising, but is definitely a plus going forward. We understand that in that new package of audits for everyone, if you're receiving federal funding, you must put every single federal fund that you've got down on a single audit list. And that way the federal government can actually track to see whether you've used the monies correctly. So that we also do at this point in time. I will tell you that with the whole leadership team there, they are very, very skilled. The CFO has 20 years of that kind of experience. The general counsel who left during the kind of bad times came back because he loves the museum so much, and he's given us great advice. And I am there for the next year to make sure that this work gets done appropriately. I'm very confident in that.
And final question, thank you, Chair, is I know it leaves it blank in the bill, but do you have an idea what that appropriation amount would be?
Well, we're asking for recurring funds that were previously taken out of the appropriation, or at least the bill that allowed us to get the first year's funds. So I believe at this point, what we were asking for earlier was 7.5 million of recurring funds, because the other funds are CIP.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Chair.
have another comment I'd like to ask anyway. We're so happy that the Hawaii Historic Foundation is one of your biggest supporters
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
And I was just wondering if we have, I haven't seen, I'm from the Hawaii Island and more on East Hawaii, and we do have the Lyman Museum there as
Yes.
well, which I'm a big
Yes.
supporter of as well. However, Bishop Museum has some awesome displays, and even the newer ones that came on board. And I was just wondering if there's a participation for you to do the travel thing, you know, exhibits, you know, for a period of time, you know, let's say you go to Maui for a week and carry on to Hawaii Island, whether it's at our state building at Wailoa Park, where we have that building establishing the artwork of our communities. We also have Lyman House Museum,
Yes.
which is just a treasure to the city as well. But I was wondering, you know, if there are opportunities in the future, once you're settled, if you can send some of things that, you know, people can come over here to travel all the time with the expense of paying for airfares. And you have wonderful things in the museum. So I was just sharing that with you, perhaps in the future, do that,
Thank you.
you know, displays.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And given that my family, my ohana, is from the Big Island, I know exactly what you're talking about. So I am planning a trip over to the Big Island to visit our gardens there. And I will check in with the different museums there and see what we can do in the near future.
Yeah, because, you know, like the Bishop Museum and our Wailoa Center as well,
Yes.
in between their monthly displays of our communities, you know, having their display work, like the wood shops and everybody else.
Yes.
So maybe one day you can do, you know, or a month. Please, we'd love to have, you know, some of, you know, those special things that you have at the museum over to the islands. And I'm sure it'll benefit, you know, no different than going to Kauai as well.
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Will
we
do.
look forward, and
I will
let
let you
us
know.
know where we can help as well.
Just one follow-up,
Yes.
building on, I think, the senator's question about sharing some of the artifacts and various things. Do you have an idea what is on display right now versus what is not?
Yes, I do. I
There's
just.
a lot in housing. They're housing some precious stuff anyway.
Well, yes, what is on display now are ongoing exhibits. So we have the Kahili Room, which is very impressive. It tells the genealogy of all the Ali'i. And then as you move farther in, you have Hawaiian Hall, which looks at three different stories of artifacts, all the way from pre-contact all the way to current day, and a story behind that. So it's very powerful. And then in another hall, we have the whole story about the Pacific and Hawaii being just a part of it, and how we all speak kind of the same language, and then we have same knowledge and all that. So it ties together. And then just recently, we opened up a new exhibit, which I think you ought to all just come and see. It's awesome. It's called Mamo, and it's really about Hawaiian art. And it's across many generations. So we had kupuna there that were talking about their weaving and their tapa and their boards that they're making, and weapons, traditional weapons. And then you have the keiki, or the younger folks who are there, who are learning from the kupuna, and they have their artwork there. It's magnificent, and the stories that they tell about how they're sort of through generations teaching each other is really quite spectacular. That's just that part of the museum.
Schedule a committee
There's a whole
visit.
science area
Yeah.
that is a different building. Then
I
there's a
go there.
planetarium, and so I would be happy to, host you at any time. It's quite magnificent.
Sure, we can
Yeah,
follow up on all that. I guess,
Happy to.
do you have any idea in terms of like the full collection would you say the majority that's on display, or is there a lot that's?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Only the things that that best tell the story are on display now, but we rotate things out in order to clean them and preserve them, and then we put others in. But I'm happy to give you the back of the
back of
the
the
back
house.
of the museum shop, because especially science, there's all kinds of collections in science. And then there's all the other artifacts. And happy to show how they curate those things so that they last forever, hopefully.
Thank you.
I'll be in touch.
I got another idea. The new exhibit that you just talked about, the arts.
Yes.
Next time, in
Yeah.
advance, do it during the week of Merry Monarch and go put that site, whether it's at Wailoa Park in our state building, the arts building, or Lyman House Museum, because you're going to have so many visitors, and even those from Oahu and the neighbor islands that go to Marimanak may not even visit the museum. But if there's this specialty exhibit, I can think of lots of things that people would enjoy having it on, your
idea.
visiting show.
Good idea. And we
Okay.
will be at Mary Monarch. We'll have a booth there, so I might get some of the videos over there.
I'll just say for the record, to be clear, we're happy to contribute admission as well,
Yes, I understand.
so that there's no ethical issues.
Sure, exactly.
Or
When I go,
appearance thereof.
I pay my own, I pay
I'm not
my
your
own
host.
way.
I'm your host, and
Yeah.
that's all I meant by that. But
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next measure, House Bill 475, relating to the State Foundation on Culture and Arts, which appropriates funds to the State Foundation for the Art in Private Places program and establishes a position. Testifying first on 475 is the State Foundation. Good afternoon.
Chair Lee, members of the committee. I'm Karen Ewald, the Interim Executive Director for the State Foundation on Culture and the Arts, and we stand on our written testimony with comments, but also in support of a general fund appropriation and a full-time position. And I've included a markup of 475 to include a performing arts program at the State Foundation. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay,
Thank
good
you.
luck. Thank you.
That's all the written testimony we have. Is there anyone else? Oh, please come forward. Good afternoon.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and the Committee of TCA. Angela Melody Young testifying on behalf of CARES, and we are in strong support. CARES has a developing arts program, and the museum is such an exemplary model. We've learned so much from the art museum. It really exemplifies our indigenous culture. They had a tea leaf exhibit, and it amplified the mana'o of our state. They have on display right now an interactive art show to learn about marine biodiversity and pointillism. Pointillism is an art technique created by Van Gogh, who painted the sunflower, and he simultaneously painted the starry night sky. It juxtaposes the brightness of the star and the darkness of the people and the village. And the current exhibit on the bottom floor, it uses pointillism as a technique to challenge the avant-garde movement of the Impressionist era. The art museum reflects us and who we are as a culture, and therefore it is necessary to support it by supporting funds. I urge you all to also support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to testify in this measure? If not, any questions? If you could come forward, I have a couple on this one.
Ready.
Thanks. Just building on the conversation we just had, I think with the last bill, curious. I think we always wondered, of the artwork that's on display currently at the museum, what else is there beyond that?
Beyond that, thank you for asking that, because I know the impetus of this bill was to potentially place more art out. We're unusual with our collection in the sense that we have 68% of the art out on display. The museum is just kind of a vessel to hold some of those works of art. And 23% of that is in rotation, right? So if you think of it as sort of a library, we, being the public art collection, have to always make our works available and rotating throughout the state. And that's why with this bill in particular, reviewing our programs, we have a robust art program, a robust visual art program, where we do rotate throughout the state, and we're seeing the need for a performing arts program. So by saying art in private places, we're essentially wanting the arts in other places. And maybe this could be a vessel to do that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
I have a question or a comment. We have many of our offices, our state offices on the neighbor islands as well, and they're all over. And I know that we are building new offices. As an example, DLNR we are moving out one of our land divisions, finally out of a cramped space at the state's building. But I'm just, just sharing that I hope that when these new housing of our own buildings, are built, hopefully that you can send over the art pieces.
Absolutely. We
Yeah,
have
and
that.
work with the
Yes.
chairs or the administrators, the directors from all the different agencies we have in our own, government operations.
Definitely, that we rotate throughout the state. So we do have and I wrote that down because what we could do is have the curator go out there, service the place, see when they're ready, and see what works of art can be placed. And then we will be able to send those works of art out, which is why we have the majority of the works of art out, and we do
Yeah,
keep
and-
acquiring.
And why I
Yeah.
point that out is because the DLNR office is one office shared by all of our, I think most of all, aside from highways,
Right.
that is housed at the state building. And now we're moving the land divisions to a building separate by itself.
That's great.
Just want to make sure
Yeah.
that you have heads up
I
and
wrote
make
that
sure
down.
once it's completed, and I see our deputy director here as well, so
Next.
we'll make sure that they know that, okay, they gotta follow up
No
to-
pressure.
Yeah, make sure that we take advantage, because you have some beautiful things there as well. And your continuation of buying art pieces from the neighbor islands and all those
Yes,
professional artists out there, they do great job.
they
But
do. We
Just
love
to share
supporting them.
that with you, make sure that we have the pieces, then you have less housing spaces
Thank you, Senator, for sure.
for, yeah. Share it with the world again. Okay, thank you. Good luck.
Just a comment, I just want to thank you and appreciate you and your team for the art installation and all that they do, especially for art in public spaces. So thank you, Director.
Thank you so much, Senator. We really love working with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
I'll pass it on.
Thank you. Okay, there's no further questions. Let's move on to the next measure on the agenda, which is the last measure on the agenda, HB 819, relating to Limu Kala, which designates an official state, Limu. And testifying first on 819 is Limu Hui with Kuaino Ulu Awamo. Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Next is DLNR. Oh, I apologize. Sorry, department should have come first on the list.
No problem.
Aloha Chair and Vice Chair and committee members, Senator Elefante. It's very fitting. I normally see both of you, Senator Inouye and Elefante, in Water and Land, and Senator Lee, you've been supporting so many different land protection and stewardship efforts over the years. And it's fitting to now be before you talking about culture, because all Hawaiian practices are land or water based and rely on healthy lands and healthy waters for those natural materials that become the foundation of whatever cultural practice it is. And food plays a huge part in our culture too, right? And so when we don't have a food source, it has a dramatic impact on our culture. And so the department stands in full support of this measure. It's one of those bills that we're hoping is an easy one to pass out of committee. And really it's, I think, much more symbolic than just sort of adding to our list here. It's recognizing the importance of Limu and the healthy environment, often of mixing of fresh and ocean water that's necessary for Limu to be abundant. And I did, noting that Kua is here and they just stood in support, I did want to share that Uncle Wally Ito is here, and he's one of Hawaii's Limu experts and knows much more than I do. And so if you have questions, I just want you to realize that there's a member of our community here who can share many things about Limu. Mahalo.
Thank you. Testifying next is Kevin Chang on behalf of KUA. Good afternoon.
Yeah, housing committee members, sorry for being redundant. I know our Limuhui folks are there. Just wanted to come in and say mahalo for supporting this bill. The significance of this bill is not just towards the dietary use, but the symbolic and metaphorical and spiritual use of limu kala in Hawaiian culture around practices of forgiveness. And our work is all about bringing back a relationship between community that's based on culture. And so I think it is appropriate that limu kala be that limu. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Up next is Jenny Yagodich. Good afternoon.
Hi, aloha Chair Lee, Vice Chair Inoue, and members of the committee. My name is Jenny Yagodich, and as a limu practitioner, it's my pleasure to offer enthusiastic support for House Bill 819 to name limu kala as our state limu. I know this committee has seen this bill already as Senate Bill 1037, and so you've already heard my testimony. So I wanted to take this opportunity to point out the written testimony provided by the Kamehameha Schools Kapalama Malama Limu Club with 75 names in support. For many of these Hawaiian youth, this bill represents the first time they are participating in the legislative process. And it's really heartwarming to know that should this bill pass, they can look back at our state limu knowing that they played a part in making it happen. This designation will help create much needed awareness about the significance and importance of limu to our marine ecosystem, our culture, and our health. So mahalo for hearing this bill and mahalo for your support.
Thank you. Up next is Kamehameha Schools Kapalama Malama Limu Club in support. Sounds like with a whole bunch of testifiers signed on. Hui Maka Enana o Makana in support. We have an additional 6 or 7 individuals in support. Is there anyone here in the room with us wishing to testify in this measure? Please come forward. Good afternoon.
I like your shirt.
Oh, thank you. I was going to apologize for not dressing up today because
that's
we
perfect.
were busy at the limu tanks and I thought I had time to go home and change clothes, but I never, but at least a woman is in the shirt.
Exactly.
Aloha mai kako, my name is Wally
Aloha.
Ito. For this opportunity to testify. I think if you read all the written testimony as well as the verbal testimonies, everybody talked about the importance of limu and especially about limu kala. So I want to take a different perspective on this. I want to just use this time to talk about a little bit about the history of how we got to this point today. And it's all started with the Limuhui, Kuaina Ulu Awamo's Limuhui that started in 2014, first Limuhui gathering. And it was organized by KUA. Niwa Tamanaha was the person that was most got the funding for that, and we didn't know. Uncle Henry and I'm sorry, rambling all over the place. Uncle Henry and I were the first hosts of that initial Limu gathering, and the purpose of that gathering was to bring together Limu practitioners together in one place. And the reason we wanted to do that is because Limu was once such an important part of Hawaiian culture and important food source. And we've lost a lot of that knowledge. Food, medicine, Kevin mentioned cultural practices and ceremonial use. And so, realizing the loss of that, we thought that if we could regenerate interest in limu, we could do that by bringing limu practice. People will still go out to the ocean, will still use limu in many different ways that was once used. And, after that initial gathering, KUA wasn't sure if we were going to continue because, did we generate enough interest? And I think the results of that first gathering, there's no question. And ever since then, 2014, every year we had an annual gathering of limu practitioners, and the interest just kept increasing and increasing. And in one of the initial gatherings, we had a discussion of what can this Limuhui to collectively. And so we came up with a list of things that we can and should be working towards. And one of them was, we should have a year of the Limu. And this is what happened. It took us many, many years, but finally we got the governor to sign a proclamation last year to name 2022 as the year of the Limu. And sure enough, it created even more interest in Limu. And to follow up on that interest, to continue that interest, I'm a retired Limuhui coordinator. We have the new Limuhui coordinator, Maria Hemuri here. So through KUA, through Limuhui, Maria and a couple of people tried to push through this bill. And we're so happy that, it's got to this point.
If we just ask you to summarize.
Okay, so what the future, what's the future aspects of voting to have this bill, to have the state have a Limu, a state Limu? What we need today is more of our local kids getting interested in science and technology and conservation and resource management. And we found that through Limu, we reach a lot of kids. And to continue that, creating that interest, this bill is very important, important for our future generations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think he may be the last person.
There were two more.
Others. Oh, okay.
Please come forward.
Thank you.
I'll call you later then.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I can.
Aloha. Chair, Vice Chair, representatives. My name is Miwa Tamanaha. I was involved in the farming of the Limuhui at KUA as a co-founder, one of the co-founders, and the former co-director at Kuaina Palamo. I guess I just wanted to add to the testimony that we've heard so far, the impact that we've seen over the years of the raising of awareness around Limu. Uncle Wally touched on igniting excitement in kids about STEM and science careers, and then also this connection to their own families. And I think that happens multi-ethnically. So many people have these beautiful memories, their parents have these beautiful memories, and we've seen around the year of the Limu, people gathering around their kitchen tables and being able to talk about the practices and the values that are important to them and to their families. And really having a Limu Kala as a state Limu emphasizes the state's commitment and also the uniqueness of Limu to our communities and our lifeways here. So mahalo for this opportunity.
Mahalo. Anyone else wishing to testify in this measure? Good afternoon again.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and the committee of TCA. Angela Melody Young testifying just to provide comments on behalf of CARES. We're just asking for consideration, for there to be consideration of what kind of consequences that could arise because of this policy. For example, SB 403 from this year repeals what was already legislated for Black Carol to be a state gem because they valued the Black Carol and it presented as a good model for the state. But then when it became the state gem, there was so much attention drawn to it that it started to get exploited by the public. So sometimes what we think is a good idea is not a good idea. And I will read directly from SB 403, designated as the gem of the state by Act 9, Sessions Law of Hawaii 1987. Black Carol played a significant role in marketing campaigns for Hawaii and the promotion of Black Coral led tourists and residents alike to covet Black Coral jewelry and other products to embrace as treasured family heirlooms or gifts that represent Hawaii. However, the long-term promotion of Hawaii and its natural resources, including black coral, has led to increased commercial use of coral, contributing to the degradation of the state's coral reefs. And so the overharvesting of coral was a concern. And that was the result because it was legislated as a state gem. So we're just asking for consideration about that. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Okay, anybody else on this measure? If not, that's it. Any questions?
Yeah, maybe not questions, but comments as well. There was one time, was it in the 80s when there were issues with the varieties and we lost a lot of our limu? And I remember because I'm a cook, but we always used to come to Oahu to buy limu. And I remember there was a time that we couldn't find anything in the store, and there were problems. I'm not sure if there was a disease or what happened at that time.
Oh, great question. I wish I had time.
Oh, no.
I have
Yeah.
a whole lecture on it, but
Okay,
keep it short.
but just keep it short. Yeah, because I think
We need enough
varieties-
time to actually vote on the bills.
But you know, when I tell a story about limu and the loss of limu, I tell a story about Ewa Beach. And I don't know if you guys, anybody has experience of going to Ewa Beach in the 1980s, all the way up to early.
We had a
1990s.
supplier, my brother's friend.
Yes.
But so whenever we came over,
Yes.
he would harvest and we would get our share.
Yes.
However, but did it have to do with the varieties, or what's the difference with limu kala now? Is that because I remember there's different kinds.
Yes.
You got the black one, you got the red one. So the limu kala is which one?
The sargassum.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. And the reason
The scientific name, but what
Yeah.
color is it? Or
it's a brown. It's a
oh,
brown.
the brown one?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
If you
all right.
understand Western science, algae is classified into red, brown, green.
Yeah, yes.
green, it's in a brown category. And
Okay.
so when you talk about the loss of limu, the story about the limu is not just what you see on the shoreline or what you harvest. The story about limu is turning around and look what happened to the Aumua. And Uncle Henry always talked about, the first raindrop from the top of the mountain and following that water all down. That's what feeds the limu. And if we don't take care of that water,
Oh,
it's
okay,
gonna
so
take-
then probably we had some diseases that happened then.
not diseases, it's anthropogenic.
Just,
issues.
yeah, just to shorten our discussion.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting, if you were on CNN or the broadcast this morning about here, we want the limu for our food supply. And then on the East Coast, now I think it's a season when all the seaweeds, they're trying to block because it's traveling now on the East Coast. And if you would see the direction of certain states on how they're going to prevent the limu I'm sure you guys saw last year's thing.
Yes.
That it was on,
Yes.
was it the Atlantic that the
Yes.
limus that on the sea was just traveling all over the place? Well, it's happening now.
Yes.
And, we're talking about our limu that we
Yes.
need to protect and whatever.
And
but-
it's all because people are not taking care of the land. And it's all because
Okay,
extra
that-
nitrogen that's creating a huge overpopulation of limu. But also, sorry, one more thing, I don't know if you understand the Sargasso Sea, which is in Atlantic. And it's the current that comes from the Gulf that travels up the eastern coast of the US, And there's eddies that creates the Sargasso Sea. And there's a changing in climate that changes the current.
And let's make sure that nobody's bringing it on their shoes or in their luggage to have that kind of seaweed over to Hawaii, because we'll be in a disaster. Thanks for all you guys do and continue the good work.
Thank you.
Because our stores need it too.
Okay, that was the last measure on our agenda. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Why don't we go straight into decision making, because this is a relatively light agenda.
That sounds like a
Today?
plan.
Okay.
Good.
So up first is House Bill 600 relating to safe routes to school. We'd like to move this forward with amendments. Similar to some of the commentary from before, what we'd like to do is make this bill complement some of the other measures that are moving along, considering it has a fairly narrow title. So what we want to do is reduce the bill down to the Safe Routes to School coordinator within DOT and adopting the language that would have them plan and coordinate with community partners and the counties and so forth on planning for Safe Routes to Schools fixes and programming and so on and so forth. That'll be the scope of the measure. Any discussion? If not, Vice Chair.
Chair's recommendation on HB 600, House Draft 1 is to pass with amendments. Chair Lee.
Aye.
Vice Chair goes aye. Senator Elafante.
Aye.
Okay, Senator Awa.
Aye.
Okay, with 4 members present, your measure has been adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Move on to House Bill 1113 relating to the Drug and Alcohol Toxicology Testing Laboratory. Our recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, Vice Chair.
Okay, Chair's recommendation on HB 1113, House Draft 1 is to pass unamended with 4 members present, any voting with reservations, any no votes. Measure is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to HB 474 relating to the State of Hawaii Museum of Natural and Cultural History. Recommendation is to pass as is.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be voting in support. I do appreciate the work that the Bishop Museum does and the testimony from Ms. Mailer. But the concerns I have is specifically having to do with what's happened in recent events with the museum. And I know this is federal dollars being appropriated, so I'll be voting aye with reservations. Thank
So
you.
noted. I'll just note for the record, there is a defective date on that measure.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? If not,
Okay, Chair's recommendation on HB 474, House Draft 1 is to pass unamended with 4 members present, any voting with reservations other than Senator Elafante. Any no votes. Measure is adopted, Mr. Chair.
thank you. Moving on to HB 475 relating to the State Foundation on Culture and Arts. Recommendation is to pass with amendments. We'd like to adopt the State Foundation's recommendations on performing arts and add in a committee just to provide some recommendations and transparency and oversight in the process, since we haven't done this before, and just frame that portion of the bill as a pilot so that we can try something out and see what works. Any discussion on this? If not, Vice Chair.
Chair's recommendation on HB 475, House Draft 1 is to pass with amendments with 4 members present, any voting with reservations, any no votes. Hearing none, Vice Chair, the motion is adopted.
Thank you. Finally, moving on to HB 819 relating to Limu Kala. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not,
Chair's recommendation on HB 819, House Draft 2 is to pass unamended with 4 members present, any voting with reservations, any no votes. Measure is adopted, Mr. Chair.
thank you, everyone. We're adjourned.